if you've been watching the budget, you probably want a concise summary of what is changing from a business owner's point of view. If last year's budget in 2024 was a bad budget for business, then this one, I would say, is a bad budget for business owners. And I'll explain why. So there's a few points I want to cover in this budget. I'm not going to talk about where the money is being spent, any of that. I'm just going to talk about what's relevant for small business. The first thing that has changed is the salary sacrifice on pensions. Right now, if you pay into a pension via salary sacrifice, and by the way, if you own your own business and you pay into a pension like full stop, the chances are it's via salary sacrifice, even though you don't have an official contract which says you're paying into your pension via salary sacrifice. But the point is, the majority of business owners, they do pay into their pension via salary sacrifice. Some employees do. But historically, when you paid into it via that method, you would get income tax relief and you'd get national insurance relief, and your business or your employer would get employer's national insurance relief. That's a lot of tax relief. What's happened now is they're going to cap the amount you can pay into a pension at £2,000 via salary sacrifice, which means anything you pay into a pension over £2,000 in a year, you will end up paying employees' national insurance on and employers' national insurance on. They haven't quite specified if it's going to be Class 1 national insurance for employers or Class 1A national insurance. They're different because Class 1A isn't covered by your employment allowance, but that's probably going to come out soon. That's not a great one. A lot of business owners, they sacrifice their pensions early on, and then they plan to then pay into their pensions and make up for it later on. So this is really going to cap the rate at which they can pay into their pensions, because there's going to be quite a lot of national insurance attracted by making those payments. The second one, cash ISAs, I don't really care about, but if you were paying into cash ISAs, you could pay 20 grand a year into it. Now that's been capped at 12,000. One caveat to that is you can still put another 8,000 on top of that into stocks and shares ISA, which is what you probably should have been doing the whole time. But unless you're really old and you need a secure way to look after your money without taking too much risk. But my point here anyway is stocks and shares ISAs, the 20 grand limit doesn't look like it's been touched. But if you've now got a 12 grand limit on cash ISAs, but you can still put another further 8 into the stocks and shares ISAs. So you've still really got your 20k limit. But that's another thing. The one that really makes my blood boil, dividend tax. That's like, when I started this business 12 years ago, there was no dividend tax at the basic rate. Now it's gone up to 10.75% at the basic rate, gone up 2%. That's ludicrous, especially when you factor business owners have the double whammy of having their thresholds frozen just like everyone else. Your basic rate threshold, your personal allowance threshold. So yeah, you got a raise and increase in the rate at which business owners pay into dividend tax on, but plus the freezing of the thresholds. Obviously for employees, they have the freezing of the threshold as well, but they don't then have an increase in the rates of national insurance or income tax. One key point about planning for that, though, is next year, some business owners may be better off just taking a larger salary. If you don't have employment allowance available or you don't qualify for it, you may still be better off taking dividends. But really, it's a conversation you've got to have with your accountant. Obviously, nothing's got to be done today because these changes aren't coming in until next year. But it's definitely a giant FU to business owners. Another change, capital allowances. The OBR leak has been very vague on this, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna explain what I know right now and then do a follow-up video in either tomorrow or next day or next week when further information has been released, and then explain all this in more detail. But apparently the capital allowances, so if you buy equipment and assets within your business, the rate at which you can actually gain tax relief on those, madness, right? Like, you want businesses to be buying more equipment and assets. That's how they generate more business. Anyway, that's been reduced, but I'm not entirely sure how just yet. So watch this space, but it won't be good. Okay. This is why I said earlier, this is the most business owner unfriendly budget I've ever seen. Business owners disproportionately have electric vehicles relative to non-business owners. It's because we put it through our businesses and it can be tax efficient. But now we got to pay 3p a mile on these electric vehicles because they don't generate enough road tax. That's going to be frustrating. Minimum wage, I think the overall increase in the adult rate's been about 4.5%. Bearing in mind, inflation's still only forecast to be about 3 to 3.5%. So it is still above inflationary. The real killer is I believe the under 21 rate, which has gone up by about 10% to something which is very expensive, especially when you're talking about employing people who don't have a lot of experience. The challenge with this one is if you're looking to create junior roles and hire young people and give young people their first opportunity in business, it's going to become a lot more expensive. The government have cushioned the blow by making apprentice training free, but that's probably only going to save you like maybe about $1.5 grand a year. If you hire apprentices, a lot of people don't because it's not really as efficient as having trainees. But there is a little bit of support on there, but it's not going to outweigh the additional amount you're going to pay on this like 10% national minimum wage increase. And I guess probably worth through my list quite quickly here. There's a lot of stuff going on. I think these are the main points that affect small businesses. I'll give you a quick summary now. So it's the salary sacrifice of pensions, which is going to make you have to rethink how much you put into pensions and if you're better off putting money into ISAs. But then you got restrictions on how much you can put into cash ISAs, so you might have to put more money into stocks and shares ISAs. You have got a dividend tax increase, so you may have to take more money as a salary if you've got employment allowance available, or you may just have to stomach it, or maybe take less money out of the business, reinvest it, who knows. Capital allowance increases, so perhaps that'll impact the decisions you make on investment, perhaps it won't. You've got the electric vehicle mileage surcharge, so what can you do about that? Not a lot, just pay it. Will it really sway the decision on whether you get a petrol or diesel car next time? It's worth a consideration, especially if you're doing high mileage. We've got the minimum wage increase, which is predictable, but what's not predictable is it's above inflationary nature. And we have got the free apprenticeship training, which will slightly offset that, but it's just not really. So as I said in the beginning, if last year's budget was a budget to screw over businesses, this one's designed to screw over business owners because business owners will get disproportionately impacted by this budget than any other group of people. Madness. But if you've got any questions about this, just do reach out. And if you're a client of ours already, just rest assured we are doing all the background planning and working out the most efficient situation for you. Nothing has to be done overnight, really, because all these measures aren't coming in straight away. They will come in over time. So that's the bulk of it. Okay, all right, thank you.